Two, one. Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote that I picked just for this episode that I think you and the guests are going to enjoy. I hate incompetence. I think it's probably the only thing I do hate, but it didn't make me want to rule people nor teach them anything. It made me want to do my own work in my own way and let myself be torn to pieces if necessary. Howard Roark, the Fountainhead.
Yes.
My good friend Preston is with us today, a great lover of Randian philosophy, psychology, literature. Outside of that, co-founder of the Good Vibes Squad, orator, author, pundit, marketing expert, friend to many, and symbolically represented in a powerful style that I just realized for the first time has some pretty sick tats, is another way of saying that. Thank you for coming on the show, brother. I'm so excited to get.
Dude, thanks for having me, Jay. You know, I actually appreciate the quote. You may have never seen this, but I actually have Atlas.
Holy cow!
Tattooed on me, so I can appreciate a little Ayn Rand. That's
for the lay person, the lay reader that may not have had any experience with Howard Roark or Ayn Rand, just without going too existential on our guests, although I'm open to that too. What
I know you are.
What is that? Why put that on your? I mean, that's a powerful statement right there. Well, what does that mean to you?
Well, it's just like this quote. I'm sure you're familiar with it. You can't see it, but I swear by my life and my love of it that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask him to live for mine. Right. So that's from Atlas Shrugged. That was a really transformative book in my early development. I was kind of a black sheep of a child. I was a horrible student. I was a troublemaker. To give you an extent, I had the FBI called on me once for a fart bomb at a school dance. So it's like I gave my parents hell as a kid. It was constant. So I felt like a square peg in a round hole kind of with the world. And when it came to, me entering adulthood, I just didn't feel, I don't know, something felt like this isn't, there's rules, but they shouldn't apply to me. And I don't mean that like I'm better than, I just mean like I got stuff to do on this planet. I got, it's like speed signs are for people who want to go slow. And I think there's a time and a place, but I knew I had a mission, and I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was determined to find it. And when I came across Atlas Shrugged, actually, I feel like I read it, I don't know, maybe 3 times over the course of a year.
Wow.
If you haven't read it, you may not be able, for the listeners, you may not be able to navigate the first third because there's a massive amount of character development. But if you could just search the money speech, that at least will shortcut you to some critical parts of it. And I think that should be required reading for everybody. But, I read that and it lit a fire in me. And I was like, I felt heard, I felt seen. And I was always very entrepreneurial. But like, I feel like I grew up also in an environment where, quote unquote, money didn't grow on trees. There was kind of a mindset of scarcity. And so I had to get out of that. I had to figure something else out. And, that idea of the producers versus the takers, and I was like, I know which side of this I want to be on. And I don't know, it was very pivotal and inspirational for me to just become the entrepreneur I am today. I've always said, and I tell my kid this, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Like this life is too short to not do some really cool things and break a few rules to get where you got to go. So as long as you're not hurting people, I think it's important to see what you're capable of. So Ayn Rand unlocked a lot of doors for me mentally, and I'm very grateful for that.
You think you'd even be on this journey
without that? I do, but I don't think I'd be here. I think I would have been, that would have been like the entrepreneurial equivalent of wandering the desert in circles. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah.
I feel like she gave me kind of a compass, a guiding light, if you will.
Hmm.
Because two other books before I crossed Atlas Shrugged was the first one, and this is actually I actually recommend this trio to people who are like they think they're entrepreneur, but they don't really know and they don't know where to start. The first book I always recommend is Illusions: The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. Really good book by Richard Bach. Um, that's a relatively easy read, but it's great for unlocking some stuff in the brain. The next one is Illusions by Paulo. I don't know how you say his last name. It's
Oh,
like Portuguese.
Coelho,
Coelho. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
like the
then
Alchemist guy.
yeah, and then so it's Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, then The Alchemist, and then Atlas Shrugged. That trio will tell if you can make it through all three of those, and you're just like beating your chest, ready to like bite the head off something. You know you're an entrepreneur. You know,
Hmm. How do you define the term at this
entrepreneur,
juncture? Yeah.
a person who takes responsibility for problems that aren't their own.
What do you think of that intrapreneur phenomenon? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, entrepreneur. Yeah, I actually had some conversations. I think I was talking. I can't remember who it was with. Oh yeah, it was. So I'm in a program called Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan, and it's a pretty good program.
Oh, who, not how.
Yeah. He co-authored that with Benjamin Hardy, and 10x is easier than 2x. Phenomenal. Um, so I was in Chicago at their event, and they were talking about entrepreneurs, and I hadn't really spent much time thinking about it, but it makes sense. So an entrepreneur, to my understanding from the conversation we had, is um, they have entrepreneurial tendencies, but they're less risk prone. And so they like the ability, the autonomy, they like the ability to build within the constraints of a system, um, minus the risk of having to build the system. That's kind of the way I understood it.
So an employee.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say an employee, I would say an A player.
If we were gonna, separate them from the employee, how would you define the
Well,
employee?
yeah, I think so. And I also think that this isn't necessarily fluid. I've seen entrepreneurs that have kind of
Hmm.
descended out of it, and I've seen people who have kind of risen to it, if you want to call it like a hierarchical term like that. And so I don't think, this is one of the things I learned in the last year actually with just my business endeavors is that there's this concept of, oh, he or she's an A player, right? Or, oh, that's a C player. There's this A, B, C player thing.
Hmm.
But what I realized is the person is relatively permanent. Obviously, that we all come and go eventually, but being an A player or a B player or C player is very subjective, it blows with the wind, right? For instance, you could have an A player that just got served divorce papers, their dog gets hit by a bus, and then their mom dies of cancer all within the same month. Well, you probably have a B or a C player in your hands right now. So that was something that I kind of had to learn, is that these are not fixed positions, right? And so this idea of an entrepreneur could also be somebody that maybe was an entrepreneur, but they got punched in the mouth in the last endeavor, and they still have the hunger in their belly, but they're scared, right? Or there's something that's keeping them from being willing to be vulnerable and face all the risk that entrepreneurship has, but they still want to get in the cage. So that's kind of what I've kind of put two and two together about entrepreneurs. I still think it's not. I wouldn't necessarily oversimplify it to an employee, because an employee could be somebody who doesn't have any of those tendencies. To me, an employee just means they get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and they're a body in a seat. Right now, obviously, we all want more than that from employees, but from a definition standpoint, that an employee is a wide spectrum of things, right? Whereas to me, an entrepreneur, there's still a level of responsibility. Like they take it personal when one of the people they serve is not having the experience or the whatever that they need or should have. And so there's this personal responsibility and ownership that happens within both of them, which I think you can be an employee and an entrepreneur, but you could also be, and more likely you're an employee and not an entrepreneur, right? And so it's like an entrepreneur, I would say, is also like, the way that we were talking about a strategic coach sounds more like a COO, a VP of operations, somebody who is still very monumental in navigating a business, but they didn't put the sweat equity in when the risk was highest, right?
For those that are not aware, what is Good Vibe Squad?
Mm-hmm. So Good Vibe Squad is a growth partner for mortgage professionals. We have a wide variety of things we do for our members. First and foremost is we're a direct response marketing agency. So, our bread and butter is the ability to generate leads that want to buy homes. And which is actually kind of cool. I'm very grateful for this journey because my business partner, McBilly, and we got good at generating leads for the things people don't want. We learned on insurance, we learned on mortgages. It's like people want the protection, nobody wants the insurance. People want the house, nobody wants the mortgage, right? And so it's kind of cool to be able to come up through what I would call the darker crevices, the deeper crevices of direct response marketing, because it's one thing to sell a car or a Rolex or a vacation. It's another to sell, you really have to get good at the psychology of marketing. So that's been fun. So we do a lot of lead generation. We build all the marketing assets for our members. And then we also have built a proprietary automated CRM for our members that has like over 100 campaigns for the life cycle of a borrower. And then we do a lot of coaching and consulting. So we have 16 coaching calls a month for our Lenssetter Elite members. We're actually getting more into the coaching space, which I'm excited about. Mainly, and it's interesting because as we've been doing this, I've learned there's so much more about coaching. Obviously, we're not mortgage people, and I'm not even trying to act like I am, but we are direct response marketers, and so our coaching is really centered about taking, the best way to explain it is we want to take mortgage professionals that just happen to have a business license and transmute them into business professionals that just happen to have a mortgage license, right? They need to be an entrepreneur themselves. They need to be able to run a business, not just do a transaction. And so our goal in that is to kind of have a variety of coaching that's centered around things that make money.
For the layperson, what's marketing in 2023?
I get the feeling, Jay, you don't have lay people listening to the Culture Matters podcast, but
I'm flattered. For the pompous esoteric,
yeah,
it would be
for the excessively astute listener of Culture Matters. No, so
that.
What was the question?
For the pompous esoteric who are looking to unpack the undergirding philosophies and social sciences that really presuppose marketing as we know it today.
Okay.
Yeah, how are you? There are actually people that may be, right? I'm lay at basketball, although I do have Michael Jordan's biography, right?
Hey, there you go.
So yeah, someone. How are you looking at marketing in 2024, 5, 3? I see Russell's symbolic representation of competence within how that's internally defined behind you.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you're looking at the field, and I know you're a great student of Kennedy, who's arguably one of the OGs of the theories under.
Oh, I mean, he's the inventor of the infomercial. He was the one who did all of Proactive's marketing and made him a $2 billion enterprise. He was the one who put Weight Watchers on the map. The amount of, dude's been doing it for 50 years, so it's like, that's actually one of my favorite things about learning from Dan is we're in a world where there's so many shiny objects, a few years ago it was chat bots, now it's chat GPT, and it'll be chat something next, right? And so many people have gotten tactical but they've gotten away from strategies and principles. And so Dan actually talks about this. There's kind of a hierarchy, and principles are at the top. And so principles guide strategies, and strategies guide tactics. The problem is, most people have tactics that are disconnected events. They're not part of an overarching strategy or principle. So, and then they get mad that things don't work, right? They're like, oh, that I tried to run an ads, it didn't work. No, no, no. You tried running ads yourself and it didn't work. Let's be honest, right? It's like saying, I tried to pull the engine on my car and now I can't get it to run. Well, of course, you're not a mechanic, right? So there's an element of that that's important. But for me, it's about getting more clear on principles and strategies to guide the tactics. And really, I guess the best way to translate that for listeners is marketing in 2024 and 2025 is going to require discernment, because we've never had such a surplus of information on what works, what doesn't. We're being sold to constantly, and I'm not hating on that because that's how I pay my bills, but everybody wants you to buy their widget, right? And so the problem is, what's the formula for success? Now, there is no one way. There's lots of ways to get there. However, I think that what we'll see is the technology will evolve quite rapidly, but the fundamentals will remain fundamentals. People will tend to buy on emotion and justify with logic. The way the sales pages are structured are going to stay so it's like, if you can start to learn like some of these, like what I would consider marketing truisms, you'll be able to navigate the upcoming change. If you don't have that, the change is going to feel beyond rapid. Like you won't be able to keep up, so it's like, you really have to have the fundamental understanding to be able to even be in the arena anymore. If you're not, you're going to get left behind.
Is part of that because of the abundance of information and advancement creates a gray or a fog over those fundamentals. It's even harder to understand the basics.
Did you read Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan's 10x is easier than 2x?
No.
Oh my God, bro. Yeah, you jot that one down.
What's your take? Oh, what did you say?
So you need to read it, first of all. I think you'll find it phenomenal. McBilly and I actually, when we were at Russell Brunson's Mastermind in Paradise, which is when he does his annual mastermind for his inner circle members in Cancun, we got to meet Benjamin Hardy, who's a co-author of Who Not How, 10x is easier than 2x. He co-authored all these, and the dude's like a PhD psychologist guy who became a book author and partnered with Dan Sullivan. And we have like this recording, it was like a 70-minute session. Now, I don't have many, I've been to a lot of masterminds, I've been at a lot of conferences, I've been to a lot of events, I travel a lot. It's rare for me to spend 60, 70 minutes with somebody that I feel the entire thing is prolific. And so he was talking about concepts like, and it's in 10x is easier than 2x. A lot of it's actually, his presentation that we saw was kind of a combination. It was a marriage of Gap and the Gain, which is another book they co-authored, and 10x is easier than 2x. But essentially, one of the principles that he talks about is most people in life go 2x. Now, keep in mind, 10x and 2x is not like a literal multiple. It's more of a mindset of, 2x is think of like growth, whereas 10x is expansion. And what I mean by that is 2x for a lot of people is, well, I'm having success with my restaurant, I'm just going to open a second location. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just slow, right? Whereas expansion would be, I'm having a lot of success with my restaurant. Now I need to find another way to monetize this. Maybe I can do, maybe you could do meals direct, ready to eat, whatever, right? It's like, how are there other ways that we could leverage the assets we've already built to create new revenue streams and leverage each other, right? So that's like an example. But 2x is slow, 10x is fast. And so what he talks about is most people that grow in life or do anything in life of progress are on the 2x pace. And the difference is, to go 2x, you can keep about 80% of what you're doing right now the same. You're going to have to change about 20% of it. If you want to go, which is what most people do, right? Because people don't like change generally. And if you want to go 10x, which is a radical evolution and transformation in your life, you have to be willing to let go of 80% and defend the 20% that actually drives the needle for you, but you also have to open yourself up to letting go of most of the things that don't serve you, friendships, relationships. He gives very specific examples to that. And so he actually tells a story in the book that I think is it's a good way to understand it. His son, I think his name is Kyle, was going to, or they were at a tennis practice because he wanted to go to college and play tennis. And so they're at practice, and his coach says, "Hey Kyle, you ever thought about playing pro? Professional tennis?" And he goes, "No, not really, right?" And so coach goes, "Oh, okay." I kind of dropped it, and then in the car, Ben is talking to his son, and he goes, "Hey Kyle, I was thinking about what your coach said. You ever put any more thought into going pro?" And he goes, I mean, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, do you think it'd be cool to be pro?" And Kyle goes, "Well, I mean, yeah, that'd be cool." And so Ben goes, "Well, the reason that I ask is because we got to mix some stuff up now." And he explains it to us, and he goes, well, this was actually live, but it's also in the book. He said, you know, if the goal is to go to college and play in college, that's 2x. Nothing wrong with it. It's actually better at tennis than most people. However, if we want to go to college and play tennis, there's thousands of coaches within a 15-mile radius of Orlando who can teach my son how to get to college level tennis. If we want to go professional, there may be 4 or 5. So the difference between 10x and 2x is 10x is so radical, it forces you to abandon majority of the things that have incremental gains. And so it creates very high clarity and discernment just through using that filter of, does this help me 10x? Well, shit, no, it doesn't. Get rid of it. It's part of the 80, right? And so it's a very aggressive way to rid your life of the stuff that just doesn't really take you where you need to go, because most people entertain stuff that, I mean, if you look at most people, it's not that people aren't doing anything, but they're not doing the right things, right? And so 80% of their time is in the wrong things, and so that's the problem, is they're going like this, when if they just made some aggressive changes, they could be going like that. So that when you talk about discernment and marketing, that's kind of how I look at it, is you need to find a way to cut through all that noise and boil the thousands of options down to 4 or 5. That way, okay, this is where I'm going. Now, that requires you to also have an idea of where you want to go, right? Because it's like, what's that quote? It's actually Alice in Wonderland. I think it's the cat asks Alice, or Alice asks the cat, well, how do I get out of here? And the cat says, well, where do you want to go? And Alice says, well, I don't really know. And he goes, then any path will take you there, and it's like, that's life, really, if you think about it. And so you have to be very clear about the end game. And then once you're clear about the end game, and hopefully the end game is a 10x, which is a transformed version of you, the phoenix through the ashes, if you will. Once you have that defined, you have to get very specific with the path to get there, right? But if the goal is 10x, right, and you'll know because it's scary. If you're not scared of it, it's probably closer to 2x, right? It's like 10x, when Billy and I did this exercise, we were both like, I don't know, man. I don't know about that. And that's how we knew we were in the right direction, right? Because it's like, well, the reason we don't know is because the 80% right now is what we're clinging to, but this stuff can't take us there. We can't get there with this stuff. And so, I mean, I'm still going through it. So it's just not to say I'm perfect and I've taken it and now I'm, Jeff Bezos, but it's been helpful to help me kind of discern what's important and worth time. Because there's so much, man. But the regardless, your original question was about marketing and the future of it, 2024, 2025. My advice to listeners that want to make more money, first thing you have to do is understand that you're not in whatever business you think you're in. If you're a financial advisor, you're not a financial advisor. What you are is a marketer that happens to market financial advice. If you're a car repairman, you're actually a marketer who markets car repair. Whatever you are, you're not actually that thing. If you want to make money, if you want to become the top dog in your space, you're not actually that thing. You're a marketer that does that thing. And if you can't adopt that mindset and be a student of marketing, your capacity for income will always be substantially lower. And so, I learned that a long time ago. And, I'm not a marketer. I'm a marketer of marketing, right? And so I learned this, and this is why I'm a student of Dan Kennedy and Russell Brunson, is I want the timeless stuff, the fundamentals, because those timeless fundamentals apply to TV, infomercials, they apply to direct mail, they apply to Facebook, Google, Instagram, Yahoo, what you would name it, Google search, email marketing, the Valpak. I don't care. It applies everywhere. And so once you know that stuff, any of the new widgets and stuff that come up, you'll be able to make sense of, because the fundamentals don't change. Human psychology is still human psychology. It's just the difference between me learning a new platform versus somebody who's not a student of the game from the fundamental standpoint is all I got to learn is where to click. Somebody else has to learn where to click, why to click it, how to click it, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's different. Once you understand the theory, all you're doing is navigating a platform.
So this brings you back to my earlier, let's call it word thought experiment. Technology evolves at a rapid pace, too rapid, or the more rapidly it evolves, the more opacity or confusion around the fundamentals for the general person on Main Street that does a mortgage or does insurance or does roofing or does whatever. Because the mediums of representing their word, that them, what they do are changing. So the more likely that people like yourself will be needed to be on their team.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's a case for that. I think there's also a case for marketers should probably plan to not have job security in 5 to 10 years. So it's an interesting balance.
Why not? Or why?
Well, I think that there's a substantial enough threat to being a marketer. So let me take this back a second, because I want to define some things. So there will always be marketing. I believe that there will always be marketers. However, the bottom 90% of marketers are going to have a hell of a time keeping their job with innovations in technology, because your average lawyer, for instance, is, and I'm talking average, but average is most people, right? Your average lawyer is willing to pay some automated algorithmic AI system to do 60, 70% as good as I can do. And the system will do it at a fraction of what I'll have to charge, because I got to charge for my time, right? Whereas a system, you can pay a subscription and it can spit the algorithms out. Now, is it as good as me? No. Could it be? I suppose. But for the average person, that's tolerable. It's better than not doing it, and it's cheaper than paying a professional. So that will be a wave of things that happens. It will happen, obviously the lower you are on the marketing totem pole, the quicker you get thrown off the bus. But I think that there's a case that, and this is happening in copywriting, the bottom 75% of copywriters right now, bro, they'll make more money greeting people at Walmart. It's just that there's sufficient. Well, you and I could hop on ChatGPT right now and write a sales letter in about 5 minutes. Is it the best sales letter? No. Is it good enough? For a lot of people, yeah. Right? And so does that affect Dan Kennedy, who only takes private clients and charges $150,000 for a three-piece campaign? No, he's fine. He's in the top 10%, top 1%. But does that affect the guy who struggles to actually say his prices with confidence because he's barely got any clients and he doesn't have enough, social proof and testimonials? Yeah, it doesn't hurt him. It kills him, So it's interesting. I'm not scared of it. My thing is I hedge my bets, So I think that there's a likelihood that we're disrupted by it. And so my thing is, I want to put myself in a position where I'm not disruptible, and so this is actually something Dan and I talked about quite extensively, is creating a moat around our business and, building a business that doesn't have ones in it, one of anything, one salesperson, one platform, one audience, one, insert, whatever that is here. Anytime you got a one in your business, you're only one away from zero. It's a dangerous game to play.
when was the first time you put yourself in a position of a group gathering with the intention to learn something and develop new relationships in and around, self-development?
My
And
first master.
why, like, what, and is that something the audience should be
Sure. Well,
drowning
first
in?
of all, I mean, there's a handful of things. That whole your net worth is your network thing is real. Um, if you're who you surround yourself with, this goes to the 80-20, right? 10x, 2x. You can't 10x and keep the same shitty relationships you have. The guys or girls that you go down to the bar with and get drinks on a Saturday at Applebee's or wherever you're going, they're not going to help you grow your business, right? So a lot of this starts with just making the decision and having that clarity to kind of trim the fat, get rid of the wrong people, get rid of the wrong things. Masterminds are great because I want to have a great life and I want to do some really cool stuff and I want to help a lot of people. And every mastermind I've been at, that happened to be a trend. That was like 90% of the room. Now, there's schmucks at masterminds, it's like there's the occasional person who you're like, oh, they're just in it for themselves. This is not about a mission, right? That happens. But in my experience, it's actually the exception. Most of the masterminds I'm in are just a bunch of hustlers that want to make their dent on the world. They want to make enough money to not have to think about money. They want to do some really cool stuff, and then they share. And so it's what Napoleon Hill called the third mind. When two minds get together, it creates this higher third mind between them. And so that's something that I think everybody should strive for, because that whole what got you here won't get you there is a constant in life. And whoever you came up with, whoever you went to high school with, there's a strong chance that most of them won't go the distance with you, and that's okay, right? So masterminds are great because, at least in my experience, entrepreneurship has been a very lonely, because it's like, I actually remember once I started to get wind in my sails on this journey. I remember I broke six figures in like 20. I broke six figures actually on my birthday, in 2018. And I remember, I talk to my friends and their eyes would glaze over when I talk about what excites me in my, my life. And I just started to realize, because I don't talk about football. I'm not talking about, all this bullshit, the surface level stuff. Like I'm like, you put me in a mastermind or you put me around intellectual people where we got stuff to help each other grow, you'll see a whole different side of me. But it's like, I noticed that a lot of the relationships I had, they didn't get me and they looked at me like I was fucking weird, and vice versa. I'm like, bro, time's ticking, like, come on, let's do something. And we just looked at each other like, this is just a bad fit. We're going different places. And so masterminds really filled a void for me, because I still feel that way. Because I mean, as often as I work, I don't have like I don't have neighbors where I can go hang out and chat. I don't really have friends locally because it's hard for me to make friends. I crave a deep intellectual connection. I crave the ability to somebody who actually wants to collaborate and share ideas, and like, I love that stuff. And it's like, well, how do you, I mean, that's a really hard criteria to go make friends. It's like, so you almost have to become parts of communities of people that have also kind of wandered into that because they also feel lost. And so, masterminds for me is kind of where I've been found, if you will.
What do you say to someone that is like, I'm in, but I've got no access to credit nor capital, and I'm scared to take the leap?
Yeah, so
They're
a lot of
listening.
people say they can't afford it, and I tell you can't afford not to. When I started on this journey, when I started Good Vibe Squad, we were going to the plasma center twice a week to get gas money to go to the food bank to put food on the table for our kid. And I was studying marketing at that time for my own insurance agency back when I had an insurance agency. And I remember one day, this is after maybe 6 months of this routine, and I was in this place because I had been learning how to do lead generation and stuff for my own agency, so I could be my own business maker. And I was switching from being part of a franchise to being an independent agency. And essentially, the franchise I was at, I was supposed to have like a 3 month non compete. They ended up dragging it out to like, excuse me, they ended up dragging it out to like 9 months. And they
Wow.
essentially said if I tried to sell insurance anywhere else during that time, um, then they have a great legal team, and I'll hear from them. And so I had spent the last, I don't know, most of my professional life learning the skill of selling insurance and talking about and discussing insurance, right? And all the nuances that go with that. And now I couldn't do what my one set of skills that I've developed. And so I came home one day from the plasma center, and there was a blue door hanger on the front door from the power company that said, um, "You have 48 hours to pay us the $680 you owe us, or else we're going to cut the power off." Well, it's problematic because if they cut the power, the fridge is out. So all the food I just got from the food bank's a moot point to begin with. This can't happen. So my girlfriend and I deliberated on the topic, and we just decided, well, can't sell insurance. How am I going to get $700 in 2 days? So I was like, well, I've been learning marketing, and let's see if somebody will pay me to do it. And so we scraped together, we used a tool called D7 Lead Finder to scrape together 4,800 real estate agents. I put together a sales page and a checkout page. I offered my services on retainer for $750 a month. And one guy, Joseph out of Tacoma, actually ended up hiring me, and he paid me. The money hit my account 2 hours before they were going to cut the power off. And something in my brain clicked. I was like, this is it. Now, keep in mind, this is the beginning of a still rough journey. This is not the end. This is of my trials and tribulations. But it was a moment of transformation. It was one of those 10x moments. I abandoned the 80%, the insurance, the life I had known up to this point. I had to let go and look at the 20% that I had that I could deploy forward into something meaningful. And so, that was a 10x moment. And so, when I would say to somebody who says I can't afford it, I'd say you can't afford not to. Go sell plasma. You get to choose results or excuses, but you can't have both. So that's really what I'd say. And it's actually an interesting topic. I remember there was a mastermind. So two masterminds. My first two masterminds I ever went to. They were different groups. One was in Dallas, Texas. I had enough money to get there. I did not have enough money to actually quote unquote attend. So I messaged the host and I said, hey man, I know I need to be there. I'm going to be there. Whether you let me into the room or not is another topic, but I got to be at this thing. I can't afford not to, but I can't afford to pay you. If I get video coverage of the event and shoot testimonials of all the attendees, will you waive my ticket fee? And he said, well, shit. Yeah, sure. Come on. I was like, sweet. Now keep in mind, I couldn't afford a hotel. I went there not knowing where I was going to sleep, but I could not be there. Luckily, one of the other attendees let me crash at their place for one night, and then the host actually let me sleep in his office the next night. So that was my first mastermind in 2016. The second mastermind was in Philadelphia, and
Oh, wow.
I remember, huh?
Where?
It was downtown, I feel. So I even visited, where was that place? Westchester. I think that's a place I visited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. It was a beautiful place. So I went there. Well, so the story is, I remember we were driving from Washington to Montana to take kind of a trip to see my girlfriend's family, and I remember I was on Expedia and I was looking at tickets, and I had like $700 in my bank account, and the round trip ticket was like $500. And I was like, sweet, I could buy it. But we were in a low reception zone. So I was like, I'll just do it when we get there. So we finally get down to Montana. I go on Expedia. Same ticket is $850. I can't afford it now. So against obviously the advice of everybody around me, I bought a one-way ticket to Philadelphia because I could afford that still. So I get out there and I explained to the host of the mastermind. I was like, hey man, I got a one-way ticket. if you don't want me, I'll figure, I'll hang out at the library. I'll do what I got to do. I'll get my way back home. But I got to be here and I got to learn from you. And so he's like, hey, tell you what, man, I'll let you sleep at my house. But here's the catch. You got to work all day, every day to get a client to buy your ticket home. If you're willing to do that, then you can come crash with me. So I was like, okay, sweet. So I did that. So now about 3-4 days later, I ended up, about 30-40 hours later, I ended up getting my ticket home. Because I sold a client that's actually like a storm chaser in Missouri. And I was doing lead gen for him, which is a unique job. Yeah, but it was, it's like I bought my ticket, and so it's one of those things where it's like if you think you can't afford it, you can't afford not to. There's a way. There's not a lack of resources. For most people, it's a lack of resourcefulness. That's a big difference.
Someone may be listening to this right now that is in that exact position.
Yeah. Well,
they're hungry and they don't what's the deal? What's your move?
Yeah. Google Biomat. Griffles. They'll show you the local plasma center.
This is like a John Wick 6, except the assassins aren't coming. It's just like John. He just keeps. I don't know if you ever seen those movies. Like
I haven't.
John,
I've seen. No, you know what? This probably doesn't count. But
I've going. He just keeps going.
It's like, I've watched one of them. I have a habit when I'm on an airplane. I'll never watch a movie myself, but I'll get distracted by what the person in the row in front of me is doing. And so I'll watch a video completely without audio. So I've watched a John Wick that way.
Yeah, you're like the John Wick of personal development. Like they can't get him down, dude.
Dude, but you got to think about
that last one I saw where he's just bleeding everywhere and he just keeps going. That's just what came to the visual of that is it tenacity? What values would you attribute that to?
Dude, I got stuff to do. I got a kid to take care of and show an example for.
How old are they?
He's 11.
Wow, that's exciting. 5th grade?
Yeah, 6 now. Yeah. And I'm very proud of him. He actually has a 10th grade reading level, probably 11th now.
That's exciting. That's
that was actually one of my rules that I had with myself even when we were poor is there's a lot I can't afford, but if he wants a book, he's getting the book. And so I always made that a priority. Despite now, I'm not the reason he's intelligent or successful or whatever you want to call that for what a 6th grader would be. But it was important to me to always provide that as a resource because I can make more money, but if I don't get him books, who else will? That was kind of the mindset. And so, and that's not just a me thing. When I say me, I'm also talking, my girlfriend as well. But we had always prioritized that, even when we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford not to, because what do you do? I actually went to school. This was high school. There was this kid that would bully me, and I found out in 11th grade that he didn't know how to read, and his dad was a teacher at the school. And I'm like, wow, bro, that's brutal. And so and I'm not trying to make fun of him. I mean, I got my own deficiencies, but I don't want my kid being that. It's like he can have some deficiencies, but I want him to be able to read his way out of something. So, that was important to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's like, I think part of it just goes to standards, Jay. What are your standards, right? Because it's like, to me, providing educational resources to him that he enjoys was a standard. So we made it happen, right? Feeding him was a standard. Moving forward, going to these events was a standard. I'm not going to go, but I can't afford it. So I got it. How else do I have to creatively get there? Right. So it's like, I think it's really a call to action to get people to define and raise standards, because most people are just operating whimsically. They really have a direction they're going. And so if you're in that situation where you're listening to this and you're going, I don't know what to do, man. I don't know how to get out of this. A quick piece of advice is look around at what 99% of the people around you are doing and don't do that, right? Because when it comes to money, we call them the 1% for a reason. Well, they figured some stuff out that the 99% hadn't, right? And so it's like you can safely say most of the people around you are full of shit when it comes to anything money related. So if you're struggling, you don't have money, stop taking advice from other poor people. Step one. Step two, find an audience of people that are smarter than you. Masterminds are a great example of that. And constant, like I have, and you can see it here. I know you're similar to that. Like education to me is a priority. Like if I don't care, this is why masterminds, like the most expensive mastermind we're in, and there's other ones out there that are more than this, but we spend 50,000 a year to be in Russell Brunson's inner circle. And it's like, what's the value? Like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gotten to know Russell, and through him I wouldn't have gotten to know Dan Kennedy and had that experience, and I wouldn't have made the friendships I've had who have translated to opportunities. I wouldn't have gotten the ideas I've gotten. Well, what's the value of that? It certainly surpasses 50,000. It's hard to define, but I can tell you I'm better off with the experiences I've had than I was holding on to my 50K. And I've just learned that most knowledge is like that if it's backed by action. That's the big if. Knowledge without action is, I don't know what you'd call that, but it's not something I would recommend investing in. But if it's knowledge that you're going to deploy and make the world a better place with, you should be willing to spend every available dollar and then some to get it, because that's how you turn $1 into two.
I have a thread I want to post on thread. Jen will kill me, but I wanted to say knowledge without action is mental masturbation. But like whenever I get weird
I
like
use that term all the time.
She tells me not to post things like that because she's mature and stuff. So I'm not going to post it. But then again, I did just say it. But
you did just say it. It's on record.
Yeah, it's on record, but it's not going on the threads.
Hey, Jenna.
Hey, yeah, I love you, Jenna. Thank you for everything. How this idea of cutting things out. What if you were giving the listener, that exercise through this medium? I know it may not be easy, but like, are they going to sit in a room alone and write down all the things they're doing and then X things out? Is that part of it?
Or you got to know, you got to have a compass, right? So I don't care how you're getting there. I've had over my life, I remember there was this one guy named Patrick Snow who was a speaker at my Future Business Leaders of America 2005 state championship. Wow. In Seattle. He was a speaker there, and he had this document called Create Your Own Destiny. And I straight up stole that from his website, and I've been using it. Sorry, Patrick. I've been using it. Well, I haven't used it for a while, but I use that as kind of my way to, where do I want to go? What's the life I want? And I used that from 2005, probably up to, I don't know, 2019, 2020. And then from there, I kind of just navigated more towards like, I have a very thorough list of the life I want, right? Very specific. Well, this is that whole, this goes to like manifestation. It's like, there's something to be said for the idea of manifestation. However, there's the, like the idea of Think and Grow Rich, right? The book was written with that title because he knew if he said, think, work hard, and grow rich, it wouldn't sell any copies. But that's really the missing part, is it's like, yes, think, but get the fucking work done. Now get rich, right? And so that's the important thing there that can't be left out. Yeah. What was the original question? Because I had another thought that I wanted to tack onto that.
When it comes to taking action, what's your process?
Yeah, so have a clear target.
And also,
that's where I was going.
There's an addition to it. It's like, what are your thoughts around this idea? I guess that it's going to happen so quickly. That seems to be almost we're almost suffocating on it.
Yeah, well, I think that goes to expectations, Jay. So this is a lot to unpack.
And I think we're in this whole generation, even just our generation, 3 years, 5 years under us, 5 years above us in our demographic. I feel if I look at it as an an observer, we're kind of like thrust in the wake of this, whatever this is.
Well, let me ask you this. If I told you Jay, if you go to work every day as a Subway employee and you do this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and if you do it for 5 years, I can promise you'll be a millionaire for the rest of your life. I guarantee it. Personal guarantee. Would you be willing to work at Subway for 5 years?
Me?
Yeah. If you could have that deal and you knew money will no longer be a problem if I just take this job, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday for 5 years.
Well, I'd have to ask some more questions, but my immediate is I'd rather kill myself now.
Well, the where I was going with that, you might want to
you
go
are
over,
asking me.
you might want to go over that one with your therapist. But so the reason I'm asking that is replace Subway with any opportunity.
I should have warned you. Don't be careful what you ask me.
Yeah.
Before we did this whole thing, which by the way, I really appreciate you asking because not a lot of guests ask me what I think.
Yeah. Well, so you're welcome. But replace Subway with any venture. The trick is if you're willing to show up 9 to 5, Monday through Friday for 5 years, I don't care what the fuck you're doing, you'll make it.
Okay.
I've had plenty of time. So that's the thing is if you think that there is no get rich quick scheme. It's the same reason why right down the street from the gym is a gas station. And on the front counter of the gas station are boner pills and lose weight quick pills. People will buy those instead of driving 100 yards down the street to the gym and actually going to the gym. We know what the trick is. Why are we buying shortcuts? They don't work. It's not the way, right? And so that applies to work as well. It's like there is no shortcut. If you're not doing the work, who's doing the work? Nobody. Oh, that's right. Well, there's where your income is, right? So I think that's a big part of it is expectations. Like you have to be able to see long game on this and you have to be willing to make a sacrifice because there's a sacrifice either way. The question is you get to choose it, which is good news. You get to choose the sacrifice, but you have to make one and not choosing is a choice.
You think the millennials are misunderstood or is it a minority?
Is that an actual question?
Welcome.
Listen, I think that there is a lot of I think there is a lot of entitlement in like the millennial generation. However, I will say this. Millennials have been stuck with a lot of financial baggage from previous generations that is quick to get dismissed but should be mentioned. And I'm not saying that to take a victim stance because I'm a millennial. You're probably a millennial.
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
probably right around my age, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we're not over here picketing going life's unfair. We probably at one point said, fuck, life's kind of unfair. I need to level up. Right? And so it's like it is unfair. It's more unfair financially than it's been in previous generations. There's an argument for that. We have inflation that previous generations didn't have. The value of our dollar has gone down compared to previous generations. The buying power, it's only going to get worse. You can't just hand money to you can't print it and then hand it to other countries, dilute the value of your dollar and expect it to uphold. So we've literally we've signed a check to guarantee it more difficult for the future generations. So that sucks, and that should be taken into consideration. However, there is a lot of entitlement. I have compassion for that to an extent, but in the same way I struggled through it, you've struggled through it, get the fuck up and do something about it. Superman ain't coming. So what are we going to do about it? You know?
Have you found other people that can also be labeled as millennials sharing this idea in their behavior as well?
Everybody I mastermind with.
That looked like a meme for a second.
What, everyone I mastermind with?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like oh, it's good. No, I mean, hey, that's a positive message.
Well, dude, this is the one thing I will say that is hopeful to watching a government print money like it's well infinite, really. It is infinite. And the government is showing you if they
So,
can
yeah.
have such an abundance mindset, why the fuck aren't you? Well, they're printing more money than you can handle.
Well, because they're
Go
printing
get some.
time. They're printing time, and those with less control over their labor will work longer hours, and they're
Well, so
essentially that's
those are
what's
the
being
effects of
that's how.
inflation. I agree with you. However,
Well,
no,
what I mean is, of course, they can print infinitely because all that's being printed is time, because
right,
that's
right,
what
right.
money is.
Yeah,
It's time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the
One
good
way.
news about that is if you're like, I don't got enough money, I can't afford it. What do you mean? Money's infinite.
Well, I think that's where we go back to when your thesis here is that uh well you allude you can choose, you can't afford not to do
Yeah.
it, and that would be an argument for time.
Well, here's just an example. There are OnlyFans, I'm going to call them marketers. There are OnlyFans marketers that are making six figures monthly doing what others would call a stripper or a porn person or whatever, right? That's like the outdated terms for it. I'm going to call this an OnlyFans marketer, okay? Six figures. Bro, I mean, we're entering an era where I'm going to be honest. I'm down to send feet pics for six figs. Okay. So
That could be the title of this episode.
feet pics to six figs of Preston Schmidli.
Now you know why I started doing shorter episodes.
This reminds me of one of Norm Macdonald's last sets where he called it it was something like Gossip, Trickery, and Hitler's Dog. That was the name of his set.
My belief is that okay. So wait, why? What do you mean?
What
What makes that trade-off worth it to you at this juncture, outside of
the trade-off of
your
what?
stink bomb in the prom?
The trade-off of what?
The these OnlyFans marketers,
Mhm.
right? So is the idea that the upside to what they're trading,
Well,
there's
here's
a
the story.
return, there's a
You know,
supply demand curve.
we're not entering an ethical conversation here. I'm not, at least, right? And I don't think you are either. But here's the thing.
Well, I'm culturally. Yeah, so this is fun. I mean, we could just roll this in the other show. I just like everything is just in binaries. It drives
I'm
me.
hoping you don't start to mentally masturbate.
Yeah, well, that's all I do. Culture. I mean, that's what it is.
Well, so here's the thing, bro.
I only think in ethics. I mean, that's a culture. That really is
right.
At
Well,
the bottom of.
Here's the deal with it, though.
It's how humans relate to one another.
That's
so like
true.
that person's trading. They're trading something, but you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's no excuses. What do you want to do? Well, people want to bitch about what they don't have or what they want, but they're not doing anything to get it. If you're like, I want to make $1 million, well, there's a pretty easy formula.
Let's see what you're saying.
Oh, but you don't want to do the work. Oh, you don't want to do it that way. Oh, okay. Right. So people want all their rules. They want they want to be right. And it's like, at the end of the day, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because sometimes you got to choose one. And so when it comes to making money, dude, it's 2023. There is no shortage of opportunity. You could sell an info product. You don't even got to make the product. You can be an affiliate marketer and get 20 to 40%. You could build products. You can go, become a massively successful salesperson. Any content you want is for free on YouTube. I was talking to somebody the other day about this because I painted my cars a few times, so I had to learn this skill. And I was in high school when I first learned to paint cars, and YouTube wasn't out yet. So what I would do is after school, I would drive down to Westco, which is like a paint supply store. And I would literally just, with notepad in hand, I would ask these old former painters, former car painters. I'd just be like, okay, so I have no idea what I'm doing. First of all, what do I need? Secondly, what's the order? Can you walk? They literally trained me how to paint a car, and I had to take notes, and I would test it. I would do it, and I'd be like, well, that sucks. I'd go back. I'd be like, okay, so this is what you said. This is what I did, but it started bubbling. It started cracking. It's, what do I do? Oh, yeah, well, you didn't have enough of this. You didn't have enough of that. You got to mix it. You got to let it sit for 30 seconds. You know, so it's like, that's how I had to learn to paint cars. Bro, you can YouTube anything. So if somebody's like, I don't got the money, no. You don't got the hunger. This is not a money thing. Money's infinite. You don't actually want it. Because if you wanted it, there's no lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness. The difference is the resources aren't as immediately evident as we want them to be, because people want simple solutions to complex problems. And I get that. However, if you're willing to reach out and grab it, it's all there. There's no, you know, it's like you don't even have to leave your house to learn anything anymore. You want to become a blacksmith? YouTube. You want to paint cars? YouTube. You want to sell insurance? YouTube. You want to start a podcast? YouTube. What are we talking about? You just don't actually want it. That's the thing, right? And so when somebody says, I can't, I don't have the money, I can't, won't, shouldn't, couldn't, no. That's all fugazi. You don't want it. If you wanted it, you'd be saying, how can I? And the answers are there. They just might not be as easy as you want, or as simple as you want, or as immediately available as you want. But I've made the masterminds I've made because I knew I had to be there. I've taken the trips when I couldn't afford to take the trips that I took because I knew I had to be there. Some of my hardest investments growing Good Vibe Squad in the early stages, you know, spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to be at an event, to do a thing. And you're like, I don't know that I don't know that I can afford this. I can't not. Right. And so I think to me, that's kind of a graduation from scarcity to abundance in a way, and in more of a practical way, though. I'm like trying to not to be metaphysical and law of attraction-y about it, but like there is abundance. There's infinity of this stuff. You know, one of the things is that I love about success in business is that and this is probably one of the discoveries that set me free in life, is that success is not a zero-sum game. Me succeeding does not take away your chance to succeed. You know, I don't fear my competitors, because I hope, you know, I'm actually friends with some of them, friends with most of them, the good ones at least, because it's like, I want their kids to have a good quality of life. There's enough for all of us. And there's more every day. And so, you know, I can operate differently being in that place than I would if I'm scared. Scarcity. Oh my God, they might take my clients. We do different things when we're in those two different places, right? So you have to be able to get to the place where you're able to ask, how can I, instead of I can't, right? And that's a graduation. I mean, that's required for any of this, right? I think that's also one of the prime movers, the prime drivers of an entrepreneur, to kind of go back to the beginning of this, is they've learned that question, how can I? Right? There's no obstacle. I mean, there may be an obstacle. There are obstacles. That's a guarantee. But most people look at it and go, fuck, I guess we turn around. An entrepreneur goes, give me some rope. Give me a ladder. Let's do this. Let's climb this. Let's scale this. Let's go around this. Give me a drill. We'll go under it. Right? That's the difference. And so they get across, whereas most people turn around. And then a life of those decisions goes by, and somebody ends up at their deathbed going, I wish, I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda. And the entrepreneur goes, we had a good run, didn't we?
What was the inspiration behind your recent podcast?
The Lens Setter Show? Well, on one hand, it's a great way for Dream 100, right? I want to have a platform where I can shake hands with the people I want to shake hands with and build a network with the people I want to network with. This goes back to masterminding. And I want to have something of value to give them in return, which is exposure. And I want to increase their status, and I want to help them sell more of whatever they're trying to sell, and help more people, ideally, right? We're not just selling, you know, bullshit. I mean, I wouldn't have anybody on the podcast I don't believe in, you know, and so that's the important part is these are all people that I think are doing cool things in the world that have something to help mortgage professionals or sales professionals. And so, you know, whether that be just information, a game plan, an idea, a tactic, a strategy, a principle. I'm open, right? We all need different things at different phases of our life, and half the time it's the message, and half the time it's the messenger. Sometimes people just need to hear something from you instead of me, right? And so I like getting that diversity as well, and giving, also my audience exposure, because a lot of our audience is new to the mortgage industry. They don't know where to start. Well, stay tuned. I'll tell you who to look for, you know.
What have you learned about yourself since you started it, and how long has it been?
The show?
Yeah.
We've been doing it for a few months now. I don't know that I've learned anything about myself from that particular process. I've learned a lot about myself in the last year, but not from podcasting. Um, I've learned that an hour is not enough usually, because this is the problem, right? I've done a podcast before, but the podcast I did before, I wasn't as passionate about. And so 60 minutes felt like a life sentence. Whereas now I'm talking to people that I want to talk to, and I'm like, God damn it, 60 minutes is up. What are we doing here? Like, did you have to go? And so it's that's kind of challenging, because like I'm trying to be back to back, and it's hard to do 60 minutes. It's hard to respect time while podcasting with people I like, because fuck respect. I want to have a good conversation. We're having fun. So that's been challenging, and that's been kind of a form of discipline I've had to adopt, although we're doing pretty poor on that discipline today. I but we're in good conversation. It's the weekend.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's part of it, man. And just I like expanding my network. I think that just it's more validation about the fact that I like to be a connector, and it's been a minute since I've done that. I've been in this season of my life, I've been doing very kind of executive level things. I've been doing a lot of people stuff. We're kind of in a renaissance of our business now that we've grown to over 60 people. And we've just outgrown, like, we honestly had very loose structure, and that works when you're at like 10, maybe 20 people, but you grow in size, and you pay a premium on that, you pay a tax, and it's adding up. So we've been in a season of implementing EOS. I got an executive assistant. I started a strategic coach. I've learned that I am the bottleneck in the business, being at the helm of it, if I can't learn how to be a better leader. And so that's really what I'm focused on right now.
How do you look at leadership? If you were to compare it to its antithesis at this point?
I think Winston Churchill said it best, at least from my perspective. Leadership is the ability to tell somebody to go to hell and get them excited about the journey. So that's it. That's how I view leadership. It's like I gotta be able to get people to do things they don't necessarily want to do in a way that they're excited about doing it. And not that I want them. I want to always get them to do things they don't want to do. That's not the goal. But it's like not everybody wants to go the way we're going, or the places we're going, and the ways we're going there, right? And so my goal is to either motivate them and be the champion for them and get them excited about going there, or find the right people to go there, right? That's been a big part of that for me. And then also, I think more than that, I've also had to learn that there's kind of a layer to leadership where I feel like I've gotten decent at that, but another part of leadership that I feel like I've failed at historically, failed is a strong word, but I've neglected, I think is a better word, is letting that leadership cascade down and developing my middle managers. I haven't spent enough time at that. And so, one of the lessons I had for myself was, I just kind of expected, because I know these were all competent people at a role, at a thing, and I just expected them to just step into greatness, right? And because I can do it, why can't they? And it's like, well, you can't bottle lightning. You got to develop people. And so we've been really in more of a season of trying to embody what we did when we were small to move so fast, and how to lead. We're trying to now cascade that into the whole organization, and it's a big mission, but I'm really excited about it because it's cool to watch the team develop and grow and kind of morph, you know.
What do you want the listeners to take away?
Take risks, you know. Take a shot, shoot your shot. At anything, shoot your shot. You know, I wanted to speak. I remember in 2019, it's actually how I met Christine. I wanted to speak at Agent 2021, Gary Vaynerchuk's event. And I saw the lineup for insurance and I was like, this is dog shit. Like, I was actually offended that because I knew some of these people. I'm like, dude, these people don't know shit. Like, these are like these insurance agents that are toted around as like thought leaders. And I'm like, bro, anyways, I had a lot of judgments. I was offended. I was upset. I literally emailed VaynerMedia and I was like, hey, I got to be honest. As somebody who actually talks about stuff that drives the needle on money within this industry, this current lineup is not complete and it's insufficient. And I would strongly advocate that you put me on at least a panel or on one of these topics because your audience deserves something that's going to put money in their pockets. And they called me, shoot your shot. I got to share a stage with Gary because I shot my shot. I got to meet Christine because I shot my shot, which because I met her, I met you because I shot my shot. I'm a marketer because I shot my shot with marketing when I couldn't afford to do anything else. This is just a series of me shooting shots, taking risks, taking chances. And I can't tell you how many shots I took that didn't pan out. I'm okay with that. If you land, I mean, dude, look at professional baseball players. The best in the world do what? Like a 300 batting average? That's life too. The best in the world got a 300 batting average. The only difference is social media makes the 300 look like it's 1,000, right? But it's not.
We're the 50, yeah.
Yeah. No, dude, it's like it's 70% of it's people getting punched in the mouth. And that's if they're the best. Most people getting punched in the mouth 9 out of 10 times in life. But, so just being okay with that. Take risks. If you want to go to the mastermind and can't afford it, how can you get there? Just be there. I guarantee you, if all you did was you bought a Greyhound ticket, if you're like, I'm dead broke, I can't afford even gas money to go to the food bank. If you can scrounge up $100-something to get a Greyhound ticket to wherever the mastermind is, if you show up and go, hey man, I don't got $1 in my name. I took a Greyhound to get here. I'm hoping you let me in. I'll help you. You want me to? I'll carry stuff around. I'll take pictures of you. I'll be your assistant for this. But stuff I need to know, and this is the only place I know to know it. Most people in that situation go, "Fuck, come on in, man." But who's willing to take the Greyhound to go down there and have that honest conversation? Very few people. Well, I've done that conversation a few times. I'm very blessed for a few people on this journey. There was a Sean Mathis. He was the one in Dallas. There's a Bobby Stocks. He was the one in Philly. They extended olive branches. They did not have to extend. And if it wasn't for them doing that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. They were pivotal parts of my journey. Now, I'm not going to give them all the credit. They deserve a lot of credit, but I've done a lot of the work myself. But if it wasn't for their mentorship, I would have probably tapped out because they were pivotal at times in my life I needed that. But at the same time, I have to give myself credit because I was there with them because I shot my shot. That's the lesson. So if you're listening to this and going, fuck, I want more out of life. First of all, do you really want it? If you really want it, are you shooting your shots? It's pretty simple.